Hello, everyone. I am Hex Harper, and this is Amateur Hour. And today we are on day 3 of the Gail Simone comics course. Now, I had finished the first page of the script the night before, but work and energy levels yesterday kept me from doing the video, so now it's on April Fool's Day. Alrighty, so what do we got on our composition book this time? We got more Wonder Woman, we got Red Sonja, and Celestia and Luna. Alrighty. And I'm actually pretty happy with this page so far, and I will read the rest of it. And I showed it to my friend editor, and he thought it was pretty solid. Uh, thought of a couple details, and at least I knew I threw at least one of them in. But alright, so I did go over this again, and this, oh boy, this thread is really, really long. And some of it I am just going to have to briefly summarize just so this doesn't take about 3 days. Alright, let's begin. Okay, we have some quick business to go over, but today is going to be a great day. Today we start the actual writing, and it's going to be great fun. But first, I heard that some students stole the Rock School's mascot and fed it a huge vat of beans. Disapproving glare! I'm not even going to dignify that. First things first, I am 4 minutes late, and it goes to the very first thing I wanted to discuss. So please grab your notebooks and start a page with the title at the top, Indisputable Truths. Trust me, this will be important. First, let's refresh a bit. Do you remember what the 3 universal tools are? It's passion, focus, and craft, according to you. Do you remember who your first customer is? The first customer is your editor, but the primary customer is your fucking reader. And there is a difference. After all, if this is why we have heroes like Snowflake and Safe Space and a guy who is a walking cell phone because of huffing internet gas. Yes, this is why this is why your reader should come first. Do you remember the industry term for an elevator pitch? Whatever. Okay, whatever. All these things are vital. Now, a lot of this stuff is to be taught by editors with new writers as they went along, but editors are overworked and rarely have the time to tutor anyone. Remember, the goal here isn't just to write, but to actually have some knowledge to help you negotiate those waters. First thing, you guys have been doing not just well with your homework so far, but have far surpassed my expectations. It's not just empty smoke. They're impressed too. More congratulatory stuff. Nothing in the world is going to make me happier than seeing some of you go on to print your own books or be printed by some publisher. And I look forward to the day you try to cancel half of them because you don't agree with their political opinions. That's going to be fun. Alrighty. Before we get to your first pages, there's one thing I want to cover just a bit. And that's when we put our excuses into our roadblock box. Okay, and this whole thing, it gets into internal excuses like, okay, you're not good enough, or you're no confidence, blah, 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 or external stuff like, I'm constantly exhausted, or my family disapproves, or blah, 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 just things outside of you. And then it's just like, okay, focus on what you can do, and focus on, like, hey, don't worry about what all the stuff you haven't written yet. Just focus on your achievement of what you have written. Thinking page is finished. Which is a perfectly fine mentality, I guess, if, that works. Yeah, so making chunks small, more indisputable truths that nothing is ever optimal. That is very true. I mean, as much as everyone would like to have. Let's see. When did she write here? It was all right, a guest house on the lake with a warm fire going and no interruptions, like a Stephen King novel. Uh, you really just have to make do with what you can, and I mean, there's certainly it should be at least good enough that you can work. Because I mean, if you got screaming babies, half the house is on fire. That's probably not the best time to start writing. Again, nothing is ever optimal. Just write anyway, write whenever you can. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this advice, and you define your goals. Uh, of course, you should always strive to improve, but in general, I agree that if if I'm able to write my own series, and even if it doesn't like reach uh, like Cyberfrog or Jawbreaker status or anything, but it gets fully funded, then I'd still be pretty happy, you know? Success breeds opportunities. All right, but yeah. Overall, that whole thing was relatively general and good advice. It was just a lot of it, and I didn't want to just read every single line of that. All right, work time. There's a lot of to cover today. We have one exercise and two homework assignments, all related to actual writing the story. This is where you start to learn your chops. This is where a lot of people panic. But let's look at it a different way. Indulge me for a moment. For some, that chair and blank screen is an electric chair for the condemned, and they dread it. But that's all. Okay, there's more stuff I just kind of want to skip over because, just trying to rethink how it's like, it. I mean, it can be pretty paralyzing if I'm, just sitting in my chair and I haven't written anything yet, and I'm just hating myself because I haven't written anything yet, and I don't know what to write, or I'm having trouble coming up with how to properly. Yeah, I get that all the freaking time, but it's like putting some of your own. It's like I'm a tea drinking former hairdresser, but I write a fight scene for Batman. Part of me is throwing those punches. And definitely, yeah, try to get like invested in what you're writing in. Be afraid of page. Make the page afraid of you. I really doubt that. Now we're going to talk about the craft. This is not some pie in the sky rah thing. These are your pliers and wrenches. Talent. You are mostly given. Craft you can learn. So that's our focus today. And this includes our first exercise of the day. We started thread under the hashtag first page for yesterday's homework assignment. If you can, that's great. Put your first page on the thread. Okay, I can't read 5 other people's, but I certainly wouldn't mind if I could. Refrain from criticism. Read 5. Like, that is the goal. Makes you want to read further. Absolutely. And so should every page, in fact. But yes, your first one is absolutely the most important. One of the things that I did for just mostly practicing the formatting and everything, and just kind of getting used to writing comic script was it was a little project I did called Out of Context Comics, where I would write a single page, or in some cases 2, out of just some story. It doesn't really, it's just like, because, I mean, sure, if I could write a great page, a great first page, that's cool. But if people stop by page 5, then I still have some problems, don't I? So that was kind of what that exercise really wanted to address. Was like, okay, can I write something that compels you to keep reading in the middle just as much as I can start off with a good first page? And yes, one of those was indeed a first page that I had written for something. Granted, that's not out of context, it's just starting it, but hey, practice is practice. And I definitely recommend other people doing that too. No one suggested this was just something I came up with on my own. So by all means, just like take a page from a bigger story, write that completely out of context. Maybe like set up a little bit of stuff just so you know what you're talking about. but but yeah, it's and if anyone wants me to like pull any of those up ever, just let me know in the comments. That would be fun to make fun of my crappy work. So after you've read the first 5 pages by other people, and after this class, I'm going to have to, as part of your homework, revise your first page. Even if you think it's perfect, do a revision, small or significant. I kind of already did that by adding a couple details, but oh well. Got it. Here's some facts to consider. Arguably, first page is okay. This was what I was saying earlier. First page is important because if the first page sucks, why would I even bother going to page 2? I mean, the worst book I ever read, I was maybe like a chapter into it, and I was just kind of like, hell, even the first page was pretty terrible, but I was just kind of hoping that like something would come out of it, and nothing ever did. Then after a bit, I just sort of gave up on it for like a year. Then I showed it to my friend, and we decided to just read it together with alcohol. And yeah, it was it was pretty freaking bad. It was some self-published track that I had bought at a convention in 2015. Uh, Probably the worst part of that was that the vendor recommended it to me, and I'm half-heartedly certain that he was just trying to get rid of product rather than a wholehearted endorsement. That's at least the nicest way I want to put it. Yeah, because it's really bad. Yeah, first page. I just realized that comic school doesn't have a school song. Thus, we can't have a heartwarming scene of us signing together in the gym. Now, I want to say that's a typo, but at the same time, with how politically correct everything is, it could just as easily be like that singing is offensive, so everyone just goes into the gym and just does the whole thing in sign language so as not to offend the deaf people. So it could really have gone either way, because that's how the progressive mind works. But enough distraction. How many times have you started a book and okay, more of the same thing? That's your opening page. That is greeting the writer between reading and writers. Shine your shoes, comb your hair. First page, you should present enough information to set the scene, and in the story, in short, it should be almost certain to introduce a major character or more. Does your first page tell us where it takes place? Yes, mine does. And with who? Kind of. I mean, yes, it does show the main character and whatnot, but that is a detail I'll get into later. When I read scripts by new writers, something on long-term prose, a few things frustrate me every time. No panels establishing location, characters are not named. Let's look at both. First, an establishing shot. Most stories need one. which leads to my next indisputable truth of the list. Please write it down. If nothing is wrong, if it works. Remember that rule. What I'm saying works for 90% of the stories out there, but if you tell a story and the character only appears in the last panel and it's told from the point of view of the cat's butt, and it works, then that's not wrong. There is a mild bit of truth to that. I mean, I would pay someone to even attempt a story like this, and an extra $20 if it actually does work. But yeah, in general, that philosophy kind of works. Because I mean, let's take a look at Axe Cop. It's written by a 5-year-old, and it started out the kid was originally 5, and it worked because the kid's 29-year-old brother was a really good artist, and it played everything straight, and it was just freaking amazing. You absolutely bought everything that was happening in Axe Cop, and it was all down to a matter of execution. Now, the establishing shot is not just essential for storytelling; it's a vital part of comics. The shot says so much. Is it a lonely forest in the rain coming down? Is an exhausted soldier behind enemy lines? Is there a star destroyer passing overhead? Everyone likes G.I. Joe, but every kid is dying for Cobra Command. We want a Batcave playset. The establishing shot is a handshake with the reader. We're here, okay? When you play D&T, what's the first thing they tell you is where you are. And also, don't be afraid to ask for mood in the shot. It's okay for a lonely tree or an angry desert. Or a hateful steamship. The artist will have what in mind when drawing, and it comes out on the page. It lends depth. What the best thing is, it's a cheat code. Say there are 2 options in your house for keeping cool if it's hot out. One is a switch for the air conditioner, and the other is a hand fan you have to keep waving forever. The establishing shot is the switch. You turn it on and forget it. Done well, it stays in the reader's mind. The first shot is an Arctic compound. You plant that seed in the first page. You don't have to keep referring to it. You don't have to keep showing it your GPS, which lends to our indisputable truth. Good artists will make your words less necessary. In fact, let them tell them, yes, absolutely. Let the artist do their job. A picture of a rusty truck is better than 3 captions of, boy, damn, this damn truck's sure rusty. Let the artist do their craft. So what does the rest of the page do? Hopefully it introduces a character or characters and potentially a bit of conflict. Our story is maxed at 8 pages. Please don't go over. So we want to get to the meat. Be charming, be clever. But get to the story, okay? Now, I read a ton of assignments on the first page of the thread again, and I was really impressed. But I see a couple mistakes several times, which I want you to reach for. A. The characters are not named or established. Like, funny thing about that one in particular, because, I mean, technically I didn't really do that in my script, or at least I gave him a name, but in the script, but it's like, but my last big project, I didn't establish the main villain's name in the dialogue because it was all over everything else, but it was never mentioned in the dialogue. I think the only time his name is ever mentioned is his real name close to the end. And I kind of fucked that up. And it was with how the script is, it would have been a really, really easy fix. I mean, let me see. Let me see if I can try to pull this up here. is, can I minimize this one? Try to... No? Okay, that's, never mind, that's not going to work, but, otherwise, I would have, simply just brought up the other document, scrolled down to where I would have put it, and then just edited it. So, you'll have to just assume I did that. So, absolutely, if you can, try to mention the main character's name in the dialogue at least once early on. I don't think I'd really be able to do it for what I've written here. Uh, but but yeah. I mean, maybe with page 2 I could probably do it, but well, I'll figure that out when I actually write it. This is where your craft comes in. When you don't name your characters or explain what kind of person they are, make your job difficult for the artist and impossible for the reader. So when you make a resistance, add a little character description. Bit players just need a look, antagonists need more. This leads to another indisputable truth. No one knows what you intended if it's not on the page. This is so important. I once wrote an entire special issue that revolved around one simple typo there, Miss Simone, plot point. Then I wrote the script and forgot to mention the plot point. This issue is fine, but that will bug me forever. Don't worry, we're getting towards the end for the day. Which is funny because it's more long-winded stuff, and then it's like, oh, don't worry, we're getting close to the end, and then it's even more stuff, and then it's like, okay, now we're freaking done. The second objection I had was the opposite thing. There was simply too much information in some of the first page entries. Some had a lot of information that was a bit too much to process immediately. Think of it as Tetris. Have you ever played and made some mistakes up front and left holes that you can't fill, and pretty soon there's no room for more blocks and they start to fall and you lose? That's what making a page too busy is. Everyone loses. Here are the basic guidelines that have been in place for a long time. Again, nothing is wrong as it works, but use these as guidelines. 4 to 6 panels per page. Even uneven numbers tend to be more interesting layouts. From what I had heard or read, that a standard page can fit about 5 to 7 comfortably. I mean, still, 4 to 6 is well within that optimum range and whatnot, but yeah, I heard that 5 to 7 is within the comfort zone, and 35 words per panel is generally ample. Less is possible. Also, be careful with text is also real estate on the page, so you have to consider how much detail you're wanting in the art, as well as how much text you want on the page. Because if you want something hyper detailed, but half of it is just one giant word balloon, then you kind of have a problem. Don't have a character perform 2 actions at once in one panel. Generally, yes, that is. I mean, if he's diving out of a car and shooting at someone, you can pull that off just fine. But if it's diving into cover, running across the thing and blah blah blah. Yeah, it's kind of try to pair big with small actions or something like that. Don't have 2 fairly large actions at the same time. I guess so. But yes, that is artist can't draw a character rising from the grave and biting someone. Both. Be careful with crosstalk, which is multiple back and forth dialogue of multiple characters, also known as talking head syndrome. If it's like one panel is just Maria talking, and then Bobby is talking in the other panel, and like nothing else happens, or something like that. Yeah, always make sure your characters are doing something while they talk. So that definitely avoids talking head syndrome. And remember, the script is also your work letter to your editor and artist. You can include notes, explain decisions, give direction, and you absolutely should. Uh, that's what we need for most of it. From the first page samples, tell your artist what you're hoping for. I start every script with a new artist with two questions. What do they like to draw, and what do they not hate to draw? I know for a fact Nicholas Scott hates drawing cars and tech. She can do it, but it's drudgery, so I write other things. Make sense? Okay, now we're winding down for the day. Remember the indisputable truth and write it down, please. Your artist is not your servant. Even if you're paying, they're your collaborator. Give them options, not orders. I asked for a bit of advice how to work with artists from Max Visaggio. She said, don't micromanage your artists. Give them what they need to accomplish their goal on panel or page, and respect their creativity and independence. Like, yes, that is perfectly solid advice. Uh, Definitely tell them the things that matter, like if you know where the person is, if blah, if you are like if you want to include some particular Easter egg or something like that, or a particular detail that might happen in a later panel, like say some part of the wall explodes and there's like a particularly sharp make one of the rocks look particularly sharp because in a later panel main character's gonna pick it up and stab a monster in the face with it or whatever, something like that. So if you you can always try always add the stuff that matters, even if it's like something like trivial, like, oh hey, I get that reference, or I'm gonna need this in there for later, so uh a character doesn't just pull something out of their ass. So, but yeah, and so first exercise after class is read 5 of the first page entries. Homework, revise the first page script, and whatever information you need for the editor, artist, and editor to know. Be nice to Fred. On your universal tools, write the next two tools. They are talent and style. We covered these a little today, more tomorrow. Think of the universal tools as D&D stats. You have all these, so you don't just have them in different amounts, and that's okay. There's one more thing we will reveal in the last day of class. And your final homework is, including the revised first page, is write the first half of the story. So 4 pages for me. And that's it. Mostly it's share work with each other, Discord server, a sample of script formatting. I haven't seen the just a brief, like, hey, this page is going to have 5 panels and this one is. I haven't seen this particular thing, and I haven't obviously done that particular thing, but I'm not opposed to it. I probably won't start doing it, but I mean, as long as your pages are and panels are all clearly labeled, uh, it shouldn't be too bad. And granted, when you finalize your script, do it in something better than Notepad. So yeah, and it's just, well, all right. So, without further ado, I get to read my own writing this time. So, I haven't thought of a title yet. By me, page 1. Panel 1. Interior main room of a rundown cabin. 10 p.m. Only light sources are the hint of moonlight, a fire in the fireplace. Snowing heavily outside. It's fairly RPG-ish fantasy setting, so whatever remaining furnishings and accoutrements are in the house should fit within reason. The actual panel consists of what little remains of a broken down bookshelf on the floor. Sound effects. Shh. Panel 2. The kitchen area of the main room of the cabin. Just about everything wooden has been taken apart and gone. Shelves, cabinets, whatever. So, shh. Panel 3. An old man sitting in a wooden chair, his eyes closed. Basked in the light of the fire. The old man has been dead for a while, but the cold has slowed decomposition down to the point where he could be confused for sleeping, though considerably pale. Shh. Panel 4. Another corner of the cabin. Most of the floorboards have been ripped out. Shh. Panel 5. A young warrior. I'll just call him Ajax to make things easy, because I mean, this is just an exercise, so male, with his back against the wall by the fireplace. He's dragging a whetstone across the edge of his sword. His hands can barely hold the thing because of how much he's trembling. He hasn't had a proper meal in about a week, and he hasn't had a proper night's rest in equal that time. Every piece of wood has been able to find has been keeping the fire in the fireplace. Fire. Just revive. Going. There we go. Editing. His demeanor is trying to maintain composure despite the panic he's going through. Shh. Ajax. Thoughts. I won't let that thing get me. Panel 6. High-angle shot of the entire room. Front door is opposite of the fireplace wall. Second door on the fireplace wall leads to a bedroom. A monster's distant, unearthly howl fills the room. And I'm not even going to try to sound that out, but you get the idea. Like some bit of advice I had heard recently was, try to avoid in medias res unless you like really, really have to. And kind of with this, I really, really felt I had to, mostly to kind of establish the tone. And this was just kind of a decent point to do in medias res, because if it was in the middle of a fight or something, that wouldn't be as good, because I don't want to. Because I want there to be a good payoff. Anyway, so thank you all for watching. I will see you next time when I have done 3 more pages. Have a good day.